Another way you can sort of divide up the effects of drugs, right? We had therapeutic versus side effects. We can also talk about specific effects of drugs versus non-specific effects of drugs. Now, specific drug effects are, as it states up here, based on physical and biochemical interactions, right, of a drug with a target site in living tissue. Well, an example with that would be, for example, we were talking about the sympathetic nervous system, right? Is sort of activated when you're engaged in sort of fight or flight behavior. And one of the effects of norepinephrine, which is the chemical released, by neurons of the sympathetic nervous system on organs, is to speed up the heart when it acts at the heart. So there are specific protein receptors that norepinephrine is going to interact with and promote sort of a speeding up of the heart. So you can have drugs that will also act, fit in the lock of these receptors for norepinephrine on the heart and result in, the specific drug effect of speeding up heart rate. And that's a specific drug effect. We can sort of predict that, based upon the site of drug action. In contrast, there are a whole host of non-specific effects that can be the result of exposure to drugs. These are actually based upon, more complex aspects of sort of nervous system function, perceptions, expectations of whether the drug works or not, right? Memory, change the body, memory of past experiences with the drug, for example, change the body and nervous system to produce often unexpected drug effects. So, for example, somebody who receives medication for pain might report a dramatic, analgesic response, a terrific reduction in pain, while somebody else given the same dose may not have that, experience. So there can be real changes, and maybe it's because they tried the drug previously and they didn't have a great, response previously, so that's changed their expectations. Changing your expectations changes your brain, changes how, that drug action will, produce its drug effect. Let me give you a couple of examples of a very well-known, non-specific drug effect, which is called the placebo effect. The placebo effect is an example of, a non-specific effect. This is a famous study that was done in the 70s by Levine et al., where he took two groups of patients who were suffering from ulcers, right, painful ulcers, and he was giving them drugs that, he told them he was going to give them drugs that would reduce the pain of their ulcers. So in the first group, group 1, he delivered the pills, and these, it turns out, were sugar pills. There was nothing in these pills, no chemical that could actually, have action, and where we could predict any sort of specific analgesic response, right? He had a doctor dressed up very formally come in and, present this drug as this, terrific new medication that has been shown to relieve pain in ulcer patients in the past. And they were, told to take this drug, and they did. In group 2, they had a nurse come in, and this is actually shows it's dated to the 70s. Many people might trust the nurse, much more than the doctor. But the nurse came in, and she said, this is he said, this is like, a drug that has not been necessarily shown, to relieve pain in all patients, but in some it's been successful. Well, it turned out that in group 1, 70% of the ulcer patients reported analgesic, effects. They reported, reduced pain, while in group 2, only 25% did. And a quick, search of the internet shows you more, examples, of placebo effects that are quite dramatic. This is, of course, from Pfizer with Viagra. It turns out that 24 or 5% of patients who received just a sugar pill, of course, probably blue, actually reported improved, function with the placebo pill, as did with the actual, increasing doses of Viagra that were presented to these patients.